Change is not your enemy. Change is not your destroyer. Change is your invitation. It is God's way of pulling you into a new dimension, into a fresh anointing, into a space where your faith is stretched, your character is refined, and your destiny is unlocked. Too many of us resist change because it's uncomfortable. We hold on to the familiar like it's our lifeline, but the truth is, sometimes what's familiar is what's holding us back. There comes a moment when God will shake the very foundation of your life, not to break you, but to build you. When God is ready to elevate you, he will disrupt everything that's been keeping you stuck. The people you used to rely on may start fading away. The job you thought was your security might be taken from you. The plans you laid out so perfectly may start unraveling. But don't you dare panic. Don't you dare question whether God has left you, because the breaking is always part of the blessing. The shaking is always a sign that something greater is on the way. You cannot step into your next season carrying the weight of your last one. Some of us are so busy mourning what was that we can't embrace what is. God is saying, I need you to move with me. I need you to trust me in this transition. I need you to let go of what you thought life would look like so I can show you what I had planned all along. Grace is not just God's ability to forgive you. Grace is his power to sustain you through change. It's his divine strength that allows you to bend but not break, to stumble but not fall, to walk through the fire and come out without even smell. So, don't fear the shifting. Don't resist the stretching. When God changes your season, he will also change your capacity. What was hard before will become easy. What seemed impossible will become attainable. What once felt like rejection will be revealed as redirection. If you can just surrender to the process, if you can just trust God in the uncertainty, if you can just hold on long enough, there is glory on the other side of this change. Change is often misunderstood. Many see it as a threat, an unwelcome disruption to their carefully laid out plans. But what if change is not something happening to you, but something happening for you? What if God is using it to usher you into a new season, a higher level, a greater version of yourself? When a door closes, when a relationship shifts, when the ground beneath you starts to shake, it's not always a sign of disaster. It's often a divine invitation. God never calls you to comfort. He calls you to purpose. And purpose requires movement. It requires transformation. It requires the willingness to step into the unknown, to trust even when you can't trace him, to believe that the same God who was faithful in your past will be faithful in your future. Change is the tool he uses to refine you, to stretch your faith, to strip away the things that no longer serve you. If you keep resisting what God is trying to do, you may find yourself stuck in a place he never meant for you to stay. But if you embrace change with grace, if you lean into the discomfort with trust, you'll discover that God was never taking something from you. He was making room for something greater. When God is ready to take you higher, he will shake the very ground you stand on. It may feel like your life is unraveling, like the people and places you depended on are slipping away. But don't be deceived. This is not destruction. It is divine elevation. God will never allow you to remain in a place that no longer serves his purpose for your life. If he is shaking it, it means he is shifting you. If he is shifting you, it means he is stretching you. And if he is stretching you, it means he is preparing you for something far greater than what you are leaving behind. Look at the caterpillar. It must go through the breaking of the cocoon to emerge as a butterfly. The seed must break through the soil before it becomes a towering tree. Likewise, There are moments in your life when God has to break the familiar so he can birth the extraordinary. It may feel like rejection. It may look like failure, but in reality, it is transformation. The people who walked away, the doors that closed, the opportunities that vanished, none of it was by accident. God was not punishing you. He was positioning you. Holding on to what was can keep you from stepping into what could be. Too often, people mourn the past so deeply that they miss the future God is trying to place in their hands. Change is not always comfortable, but it is necessary. There are places God is calling you to go, people he is calling you to impact, and assignments he is calling you to fulfill. But you cannot carry old baggage into a new season. You cannot move forward while clinging to what was familiar, even if it no longer serves you. Lot's wife turned back and turned into a pillar of salt because she was more attached to where she was coming from than where God was taking her. The Israelites wanted to return to Egypt because even in bondage, familiarity felt safer than the uncertainty of freedom. But God is saying, trust me, what I have ahead of you is greater than what is behind you. If you keep your eyes fixed on what you lost, you will miss what he is building. The past was a chapter, not the whole story. What's ahead is bigger, better, and exactly what he has prepared for you all along. Grace is more than unmerited favor. It is the supernatural strength that carries you through life's transitions. When God ushers you into a season of change, he does not leave you to figure it out on your own. His grace goes before you, making the crooked places straight. His grace surrounds you, shielding you from the attacks of the enemy. His grace sustains you, giving you the power to endure what would have broken someone else. Change can feel overwhelming. It can make you question your abilities, your worth, and even your calling. But grace is what steps in when your strength runs out. Grace is what reminds you that you don't have to have all the answers to keep moving forward. It is what turns your weakness into a testimony, your uncertainty into faith, and your struggle into a stepping stone. Paul said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." That means even in your lowest moments, even when you feel unqualified and unprepared, God's grace is already working on your behalf. You may not feel strong enough to embrace change, but grace will carry you until you grow into the person God is calling you to be. Grace is not just God's way of forgiving your past. It is his power sustaining your present and preparing you for your future. When change comes, when the road ahead looks uncertain, it is grace that carries you forward. You may not feel ready. You may not feel equipped, but grace does not require you to have it all figured out. Grace steps in where human strength runs out. Grace fills the gaps between what you have and what you need. Some changes feel like they are too much to bear. The weight of transition, the discomfort of stepping into the unknown, the fear of losing what was familiar, it can all feel overwhelming. But grace is what keeps you standing when everything else is shifting. Grace is what reminds you that you don't walk alone. You may stumble, you may struggle, but you will not fall because his grace is sufficient for you. When God moves you into a new season, he doesn't just call you, he carries you. He doesn't just command you to go, he equips you to succeed. You are not surviving by your own strength. You are being upheld by the unshakable, unstoppable, and unbreakable grace of God. What looks like rejection is often God's redirect. Too many times people cry over closed doors, lost opportunities, and relationships that didn't work out, not realizing that what they are calling a loss is really God's way of leading them to something better. Rejection is not the end of the road. It is a divine detour. It is God stepping in and saying, I have something greater for you. When people walk away, when plans fall apart, when the job doesn't come through, don't waste time mourning what didn't happen. Trust that if it was meant for you, nothing could have taken it away. And if it left, it was never part of God's ultimate plan. Joseph was rejected by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and wrongfully imprisoned. But every rejection was a step toward his destiny. Had his brothers never betrayed him, he would have never ended up in Pharaoh's palace. What they meant for evil, God turned for good. When rejection comes, don't let it break you, let it propel you. Don't let it weaken your faith. Let it strengthen your trust. God is not removing things to harm you. He is clearing the way for something beyond what you imagine. The process of change is never easy, but if you can endure it, there is glory on the other side. Too many people give up in the middle of transition because they can't see the full picture. They allow frustration, fear, and uncertainty to convince them that where they are now is where they will always be. But God never starts something without finishing it. If He has allowed you to enter a season of change, He has already made provision for your victory on the other side. The discomfort you feel is not a sign to quit. It is proof that you are growing. Just like gold is refined in fire, your faith, endurance, and character are being shaped through this process. It may not make sense now, but if you hold on, you will look back and see that every struggle had a purpose. Every delay was setting you up for something greater. God never takes you through transition just to leave you there. He is developing you, positioning you, and strengthening you for the promise ahead. If you keep moving forward, you will step into blessings, favor, and opportunities beyond anything you could have imagined. Change is not always easy, but it is always necessary. The discomfort, the stretching, the uncertainty, none of it is wasted. Every shift, every loss, every unexpected turn is part of a divine design, shaping you into the person God has called you to be. Too often people resist change because they fear what they cannot control. But the truth is, control was never ours to begin with. God is the author of your story, and He knows exactly what He is doing. What looks like chaos to you is clarity to Him. What feels like an ending to you is a beginning to Him. There's no progress without movement, no transformation without transition. The butterfly cannot remain a caterpillar. The seed cannot remain buried in the ground. Growth demands change, and change requires trust. Trust that even when you don't understand what God is doing, He is working all things together for your good. Trust that what He removes, He replaces with something better. Trust that if He is calling you to step forward, it is because there is something greater ahead than what you are leaving behind. So, let go of fear. Let go of regret. Let go of the idea that life was supposed to look a certain way. Let go of the need to understand every detail before you move. You were never meant to stay where you started. You were never meant to hold on to things that no longer serve you. You were created for more. You were created to grow, to evolve, to walk boldly into new seasons with faith, not fear. The grace to change is already in you. The strength to endure the transition is already in you. You don't have to have all the answers to keep going. You don't have to know the full plan to take the next step. All you have to do is trust that God is leading you, that He is ordering your steps, and that where He is taking you is greater than anything you could have imagined. When things don't go as planned, don't see it as a failure. See it as redirection. When doors close, don't see it as rejection. See it as God protecting you from something you couldn't see. When people walk away, don't chase after them. Trust that the ones who are meant to walk with you into your next season will be placed there by God. You don't have to force what is divinely assigned to you. Embrace the stretching, the breaking, the refining. You are being molded, strengthened, prepared. This season is not your final destination. It is a stepping stone to something greater. The pain, the waiting, the uncertainty, it is all working together to build you, not break you. If you surrender to the process, if you trust that God's hand is on your life, you will see the glory on the other side. There is nothing ahead of you that God has not already prepared you for. He has already given you the grace to make this change. He has already equipped you with everything you need to walk through this transition with power, with peace, and with confidence. Stop doubting. Stop hesitating. Stop looking back. The past is behind you. The future is waiting for you. And God is walking with you every step of the way.